She didn't expect Christmas Eve to break her. Yet there she was, sitting alone at a beautifully decorated restaurant table, surrounded by the warm glow of twinkling lights and the muffled laughter of families, fighting back tears that refused to stay hidden. The untouched plate before her, the glass of water trembling slightly beneath her shaking fingers, and the chair across from her remaining empty for far too long, all of it felt like a spotlight on her loneliness. She had dressed with hope in her heart, slipped into a green satin dress that made her feel brave again, believing that maybe this blind date would be different, that maybe this time someone would see her for more than the woman who'd been left too many times. But the truth hit her harder than the winter wind outside. She had been rejected before even being given a chance. And that was why she sat there, silently unraveling, her mascara mixing with tears, on what should have been the most magical night of the year. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the beauty of unexpected moments, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel more than you know. Time seemed to slow in the dim golden ambience of the restaurant, as if the universe pitied her enough to soften the edges of her disappointment. Couples clinked glasses around her, leaning close, whispering secrets wrapped in love. Children giggled near the grand Christmas tree in the corner, chasing the soft melodies playing from hidden speakers. The world moved on joyfully while her own heart felt heavy, painfully still. She wondered what was wrong with her. Was she too quiet? Not interesting enough? Too emotional? She tried not to let her thoughts spiral, but the hollow echo of her date's last-minute cancellation text, claiming an emergency, but obviously a cowardly escape, haunted her. It hurt because she had dared to hope. And hope, she realized, was a dangerous thing to give to a fragile heart. The sting in her chest deepened until she couldn't hold the tears back. She didn't sob or make a scene. She just let silent tears slip down her cheeks, feeling exposed and foolish. It was in this vulnerable moment that she noticed a little girl, maybe 3 or 4 years old, wearing a red velvet Christmas dress and hugging a handmade teddy bear to her chest. The child's bright eyes sparkled with curiosity as she watched her from the next table over, where a couple, presumably her relatives, sat engrossed in conversation, not paying much attention to her. The little girl seemed drawn to her sadness, as if she could hear sorrow the way others heard sound. Before she could look away, the child climbed onto the empty chair across from her, leaning forward with an innocent grin, as if she had been invited. She held her teddy bear tightly yet confidently, her tiny face glowing with pure joy. It was a jarring contrast to the woman's tear-streaked expression, and it pulled her attention away from her despair. She tried to smile, wiping her cheek quickly, embarrassed by her own vulnerability in front of a child. But the little girl did something unexpected. She reached out and gently placed her small hand on the woman's arm, her touch warm, steady, and filled with a strange, comforting certainty. It felt like the first real human connection she'd had all night. As the woman tried to understand what was happening, the girl continued to watch her with a look far wiser than her age. And then, without hesitation and with the kind of honesty only a child could possess, she asked the question that would forever divide this night from every night that came before, "Can you be my new mom?" The words weren't loud, but they crashed into her heart with indescribable force. She froze. She couldn't breathe. Her thoughts stopped spinning long enough for her to truly see the child, her soft blonde hair tied in a small ponytail, her cheeks flushed with excitement, her entire being filled with an innocence that had the power to heal wounds she never knew how to close. The woman didn't understand. She looked around for someone to claim the girl, and eventually she saw him, a man at the adjacent table, sitting stiffly, his hands clasped tightly as if to keep himself from falling apart. He looked young, though exhaustion lined his face. His suit jacket hung slightly awkwardly, as if he'd dressed in a hurry. And his eyes carried a pain that mirrored her own. He stood up abruptly, his expression flustered and apologetic, and approached the table. But even from a distance, she could tell he wasn't angry. He looked heartbroken, guilty even, as if the child's question exposed something he'd been trying to bury. He reached for the girl gently, guiding her back with a soft, trembling hand, clearly embarrassed. The woman sensed it immediately. This wasn't a careless parent. This was a man trying desperately to keep himself together. She offered a polite smile, insisting everything was fine, trying to hide her own emotional turmoil. But something in the man's eyes struck her. It was a familiar pain, the kind that comes from losing someone who mattered. And suddenly, her heartbreak felt small compared to what his daughter must have endured. As the night unfolded, she couldn't stop glancing over at the little girl, who kept looking back at her with the same warm smile, as if she didn't understand that she wasn't supposed to wander into strangers' lives. And every time their eyes met, the woman felt her broken heart stitch itself, thread by tender thread. It was as if the child saw something inside her worth reaching for, even when she herself felt empty. When the child's father apologized again later, something shifted in the woman. His voice was quiet, deep, and edged with a kind of vulnerability she wasn't used to hearing from strangers. He explained that this was their first Christmas without the girl's mother, who had passed away earlier that year. The holidays had become a difficult reminder of what they lost, and the girl had been innocently insisting that her dad find someone who could make Christmas feel warm again. She had mistaken the crying woman for someone who needed family just as much as they did. And somehow, that misunderstanding didn't feel wrong. It felt like fate. The woman listened, absorbing each word with a swell of emotion. She could see how much he loved his daughter, how much grief weighed on him, and how hard he was trying to create something resembling normal for her. It softened her heart in ways she didn't expect. The little girl kept glancing up at her father, then at the woman, as if silently connecting dots neither adult dared to acknowledge. There was something pure in the child's hope, something bold enough to reach into the woman's darkened world and turn on a light. Over the next hour, their two tables seemed to inch closer, not physically but emotionally. The father eventually invited her to join them, perhaps out of sympathy, perhaps out of unexpected connection. She hesitated, afraid of intruding, afraid of wanting too much. But the little girl beamed, practically pulling her by the hand. The father offered a gentle smile, shy, uncertain, but genuine, and she felt something inside her say yes before she even spoke it. As they shared dinner, she found herself laughing softly at the child's stories, her heart blooming again in ways she hadn't felt for years. The warm lights reflected off the ornaments around them, casting a soft glow that made the moment feel almost unreal. The father listened to her with an attentiveness she had never experienced on any date, blind or otherwise. They talked not like strangers but like people who had both been hurting for too long and finally found someone who understood the silence behind their smiles. The child nestled her teddy bear and leaned against the woman occasionally, as if she'd already made up her mind about who she belonged with. By the time dessert arrived, the woman realized her heartbreak from earlier had faded, not because it no longer mattered, but because something gentler had replaced it. Something hopeful. Something unexpected. Something that felt like the beginning of a miracle wrapped in the innocence of a child's question. If this story is touching your heart so far, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. It truly helps keep these stories coming. The night drew to a close, but none of them seemed eager to leave. The father walked her to the door, the little girl holding tightly to both their hands, swinging them as if she were stitching them together with invisible thread. The cold air outside was crisp, but the warmth between them lingered like the final embers of a fire. She felt a softness in her chest, a possibility she hadn't dared imagine just hours earlier. Before they parted, the little girl hugged her tightly around the waist, the kind of hug that said she didn't want her to disappear from her life. And for the first time in a long time, the woman didn't feel alone. She felt chosen. Before the ending, please comment below. Would you accept the little girl's wish if you were in her place? That Christmas Eve, the woman left the restaurant without the date she had hoped for, but with something far more extraordinary. She walked into the night with a heart no longer shattered, but gently, tenderly pieced back together by the tiny hands of a child who believed in love so fiercely that she brought two broken souls toward the possibility of healing. And though she didn't know what the future held, she felt, for the first time in years, that maybe, just maybe, the universe had finally led her exactly where she was meant to be. And if this story touched your heart, please like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope tonight, and subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us all that miracles often come from the smallest voices.